Once upon a time, there lived a very wealthy woman who wore the same dress for over 20 years. Her name was Chikodi, and everywhere she went, people recognized her not by her wealth or influence, but by her faded dress that she never stopped wearing. For 20 long years, Chikodi wore the same dress. Her maids washed it every single night. They dried it carefully before dawn, ironed it gently, and laid it out like something sacred. Chikodi wore it to the office, to the market, to church, to meetings where millions of naira were made. She wore it when she gave speeches. She wore it when she signed deals. She even wore it when she prayed, and people began to whisper. Some laughed at her, some mocked her, as they called her a money misroad, a woman who had money but no sense, a woman who lived like a beggar despite the wealth that she had amassed. They shook their heads, unable to understand why someone so rich would choose to look so ordinary. But no one in this world was more ashamed of her than her own daughter, Daisy. To Daisy, that dress was a curse. It was ugly, old, embarrassing. It made her stomach twist every time she saw it. Whenever her mother appeared at school events or public gatherings in that same dress, Daisy wished the ground would open and swallow her whole. One morning, as they prepared to leave the house, Daisy finally exploded. "Mommy, don't you have shame?" She snapped, her voice sharp with anger and humiliation. "Other mothers change clothes now. You're always wearing this rag, like you don't have any money. All my friends laugh at you, calling me the daughter of a village woman. Some even say that you stink and that you are a cleaner who most likely worked for a wealthy family. No one believes me when I tell them that you're really rich. They even laugh and call me delusional, all because you chose to wear that useless dress that even a beggar would reject. But it's always clean," she replied her daughter, who rolled her eyes and walked away. Chikodi stood there silent as tears began to pour down her eyes. She could see the disappointment on her daughter's face and knew how much this had gotten to her. However, as the days passed, Chikodi continued to live her normal life. She continued to wear the same dress, and this infuriated her daughter, who could not stand the sight of her. One evening, Chikodi arrived at her daughter's school to pick her up. She searched the entire school and was told that her daughter had already left school. By the time she arrived home, she met her daughter, who did not seem pleased to see her. Chikodi asked why she left school without her permission, and her daughter informed her that she would be following Kamsi's mother home. Everyone loved how Kamsi's mother dresses. They even compare her to you, saying that Kamsi's mother should give you some fashion classes. At this point, Mom, I would prefer to come home with her, she said to Chikodi, whose heart broke into a million pieces. She retired to her room that evening, in tears, as her daughter's words replayed in her mind over and over again. Daisy, however, sat in her own room sad. To her, that dress was not just simple. It was a public disgrace that followed her like a shadow wherever she went, and every time she saw it, something bitter rose inside her throat. Anger, shame, and a question that she could not help but ask. Why did God give me a mother like this? Daisy asked herself over and over again as she compared her mother to the other mothers in the school who were not even half as wealthy as her mother was. Her embarrassment did not even start in one day. It grew like a stubborn weed, watered by whispers, laughter, and the cruel eyes of people who love gossip more than truth. At school, Daisy was the girl people watched. Her hair always perfect, her shoes always clean, her phone always new. Everyone knew her mother was rich because her school fees were paid early and her bags changed like the weather. But whenever Chikodi came around, everything that Daisy had built cracked. One afternoon, during their open day, parents flooded the compound wearing lace, perfume, and pride. Daisy stood with her friends near the staircase, laughing too loudly as her mother approached her in her old dress. "Is that not your mom?" a girl asked, as her voice dripped in disbelief. Daisy turned and saw her mother stepping out of the car, gift basket in hand, waving like the happiest woman on earth. The crowd noticed. Some parents nodded respectfully because money commands respect even when the clothes does not. But the students, oh, the students were merciless. "She looks like a house help." Some snickered. "Are you sure she's rich?" Another mocked, as her Daisy's throat tightened. She wanted to disappear. She wanted the ground to open up and swallow her as she watched her mother wave at her happily. Daisy pretended not to see her. She turned away and walked inside as her mother's hand remained suspended in the air. Her smile did not break immediately. It simply faded like tired light as she approached her daughter and asked how she was doing. Daisy responded coldly as she snatched the basket like it offended her. That night, Chikodi sat on her bed long after everyone had slept, holding the dress between her fingers as tears fell quietly down her cheeks. Meanwhile, Daisy lay on her bed in school, staring at the ceiling as she asked God why he had to give her a mother like hers. "Why me?" she said repeatedly, as her mind replayed the embarrassment that she had faced in the hands of her mother. Daisy could not understand why her mother had refused to buy new clothes. The thought filled her with so much rage as she questioned if her mother was doing this on purpose just to mess with her life. Daisy could not wrap her head around it. She went to bed thinking of what to do as a genius thought ran through her mind. Daisy decided to buy her mother some new clothes. She called her mother's secretary on the phone and pleaded with her to deliver a gift to their home for her mother's birthday. The secretary did as she was instructed as she delivered Daisy's gift to her mother, who was so thrilled to receive it. The dresses were well packaged as Chikodi had no idea what it was. Minutes later, she retired to her room and opened up the package, which contained 3 beautiful dresses from her daughter. Chikodi knew what this meant. Her daughter wanted her to dress better, but Chikodi was not ready to let go of her favorite dress. She hung the new dresses in her wardrobe as she continued to live her life. Weeks later, Daisy was set to return home for the midterm. She stood at the school gate, excited to see her mother in one of the new dresses. Daisy had waited for this day all her life as she stood there by the corridor. Daisy's heart was beating so fast with hope. She had imagined it too many times. Her mother stepping out of the car in one of the new dresses, looking like the rich mommy that she really was. Daisy even rehearsed the smile that she would give her friends, the kind of smile that says so much without even uttering a word. Daisy, in fact, could not wait. She stood there as the school gates opened, ushering in parents who were so eager to take their kids home. They began to arrive one after the other as luxury cars pulled up in the driveway. Mothers stepped out in lace, silk and designer heels, calling out their children's names as they all reunited in the most beautiful way. Daisy was so full of hope. She was so sure that her mother would shut everyone up with her new dressing. In fact, this was going to be the day when everything changes, and Daisy could not hold back her excitement. She waited for a few minutes and saw her mother's car. Her face lit up in excitement as she stared at the car with anticipation. However, when the car door opened, her entire world shattered in a way that she did not expect. Her mother was still wearing the old dress that she had so hated. Daisy's smile collapsed instantly. Her rehearsed confidence evaporated like smoke as people began to point and talk about her mother. Daisy, in that moment, felt something crack inside her chest. She turned away sharply, pretending not to see her mother, who was waving happily from across the hall. But Daisy pretended not to see her. She snuck out through the back door as Chikodi searched for her everywhere but couldn't find her. It was as if her daughter disappeared into thin air as the school guards combed the entire school but didn't find her anywhere. Hours later, Chikodi arrived home and met her daughter, who was still boiling in rage. "Where did you disappear to? And how did you get home?" her mother asked as Daisy revealed to her that she came home with Kamsi's mother. "At least, she's not so embarrassing to look at, unlike you, whose main goal in life is to embarrass me at every turn. I have no idea what I could have done to deserve this level of embarrassment from you, my mother," she said to her mother, who stood there broken as she listened to all that her daughter had to say. Daisy asked her mother why she refused to wear the dresses that she got for her. She stood there angry as her mother tried to explain herself, but nothing she said in that moment was enough to remedy the damage that she had already done. So Daisy pleaded with her mother never to come to her school again. "You are ruining my life, mother, and I can't take it anymore," she said to her mother, who stood there frozen as she watched her retire to her bedroom angry. That night, Daisy could not sleep. She could not stand another round of embarrassment as she thought of what to do. In that moment, an idea struck her mind as she got out of bed and snuck to the laundry room. Everyone was now fast asleep as Adaeze took scissors and tore her mother's dress to shreds. The satisfaction she felt in that moment was second to none as she made sure that the dress was damaged beyond repair. Adaeze snuck back to her room and slept in a way that she had not slept in months. She woke up a few hours later to her mother's scream, sharp and broken as it sliced through the house like a knife. "Madam, what is the problem?" the maids cried out as they all rushed towards the laundry room and met her in tears. Adaeze's heart skipped in her chest, but she forced herself to stay in bed, pretending to be asleep. Chikodi stood in the middle of the laundry room, shaking as she stared at the remains of the dress, which was now scattered on the floor like a crime scene. Torn fabric, shredded scams, pieces of a life stitched with memory now reduced to rags. She fell to her knees, not dramatically, not loudly. She collapsed the way a woman collapses when something inside of her had finally broken. Chikodi gathered the torn pieces into her arms and pressed them to her chest, rocking back and forth like a woman who was now mourning a child. "My God! My God! Why did you let this happen?" she said repeatedly as the maid stood frozen, unsure of what to do. They had never seen their madam cry like this in her life. Not when deals failed, not when enemies rose, not even when fortunes were threatened. But this broke her in a way that they could not explain. The noise finally drew Adaeze out of her room as she stood at the doorway, her arms folded, as she watched her mother cry on the floor like a broken woman. "It's just a dress, Mom. Why are you crying like someone died?" Chikodi looked up slowly, her eyes red as her voice shook in pain as she said something to her daughter that she never saw coming. "Because someone did die because of that dress." Adaeze scoffed as she believed her mother was joking. "You can buy 1,000 dresses, mother, so stop embarrassing yourself in front of the maids." That was when Chikodi did something that she had never done before. She stood up and slapped Adaeze hard across the face. The sound echoed through the house as the maids all gasped in shock. Adaeze froze as she watched her mother speak with so much anger. "I have endured your insults. I have endured your hatred. But you will not trample on my pain. Not now and not ever." Adaeze's eyes widened in disbelief. "You hit me because of a useless dress?" Chikodi laughed bitterly. "That useless dress is the reason your father is dead." Silence swallowed the entire room. "What?" Adaeze whispered as her mother stood there broken as she clutched the torn fabric and began to speak. "Your father bought me this dress for our anniversary. That was when I was beginning to make so much money. Far more than your father ever dreamed of. I was rich, proud, loud, and believed that money made me better than anyone else." Her voice cracked as she told her very sad story. "Your father begged me to wear the dress. He had bought it for our anniversary night, but I refused to wear such a cheap-looking dress, knowing how rich I had become. However, he insisted, and still I refused, insulting and calling him names that he did not deserve. Your father was a very humble and calm man, a complete opposite of the kind of woman that I was, proud, loud, and blinded by wealth. I told him his humility made him weak." Chikodi continued, her voice shaking as tears streamed freely down her face. "I told him he dressed like a poor man, and more so, thought like one. I compared him to other men, men with loud voices, men with expensive shoes, men I thought were better than him." Adaeze's knees gave way as she listened to her mother's story. "That night," Chikodi whispered, "your father left this house with a broken heart. He did not shout. He did not argue. He only looked at me one last time, the way a man looks when something inside of him had finally died. He walked out of the house that fateful day, angry, broken, and dejected. At first, I didn't care because my ego was too loud to hear the sound of my own destruction. So I let him go. I watched him walk out of the door, and instead of stopping him, instead of apologizing, I stood there, adjusting my expensive jewelry, convincing myself that I was right." Chikodi swallowed hard as tears began to stream down her face. "I told myself that a man who could not keep up with my success did not deserve me. I told myself that love without pride was weakness." Adaeze's tears fell freely now, soaking the front of her ninth dress. Minutes after he left, Chikodi continued, my phone rang, and the person on the other end of the phone revealed to me that my husband was involved in a very fatal accident. Her hands began to tremble as she narrated how the accident happened. Your father's car skidded on the expressway. A trailer lost control and hit his car in a way that was unrecognizable. Your father did not even make it to the hospital alive, Chikodi said as she closed her eyes, as if the memory still burned in her mind. I remember dropping my phone. I remember screaming. I remember running into the rain, barefoot, still wearing the dress I had chosen over him. She lifted the torn fabric again as she revealed to her daughter that the dress she just tore was the last dress that her late father ever got for her, the same dress that he wanted her to wear on their night of their anniversary, the same night that he died. This dress was still lying on the bed, where he had dropped it, untouched. Adaeze covered her mouth with trembling hands as her mother revealed to her that she wore the dress that night to go identify his body. I even wore it to his burial, and I promised God that as long as pride lived inside of me, I would continue to wear it until there was no pride remaining in me. I wore it every day to remind myself of what arrogance cost me. I wore it to kill the woman I used to be, the prideful and arrogant woman who believed she was better than everyone else. I didn't just wear it to shame you, Chikodi said softly. I wore it to save my soul. Adaeze crawled forward, tears pouring uncontrollably as she began to apologize to her mother for destroying the dress. I didn't know, Mom, she cried. I didn't know. I'm sorry, Mommy. I'm sorry. She clung to her mother like a child who was now afraid of losing her. That night, mother and daughter sat on the floor, picking up the torn pieces of the dress. Then her mother said something to her that changed the way Adaeze saw the world forever. Chikodi held up one of the torn pieces of the dress as she began to speak. Look at it well. Adaeze, look at it well, she said softly. Look at what pride does. Adaeze sniffed, wiping her tears, her eyes fixed on the cloth. This dress, Chikodi continued, can be stitched back together. We can join the pieces. We can make it look whole again, but it will never be the same again. Chikodi began to join two torn edges together with her fingers. Even if we stitch it perfectly, the scars will remain. The strength it once had has gone. One pull and it will tear again. She looked up at her daughter. That is what pride does to people. It tears things that love built, and even when we say sorry, even when we try to fix it, some damages remain. Pride tore my marriage apart. It tore your father away from us, and tonight, that same pride almost tore you away from me. Adaeze shook her head as she began to cry harder. I didn't mean to, Mommy. Please forgive me. I know, Chikodi replied, pulling her close. But learn this lesson early. My daughter, do not let people's mouths push you into becoming someone that you're not. The same people laughing today will disappear tomorrow when you get into trouble, but the scars you give yourself will always remain. She gently placed a torn dress on the floor. I wore this dress to kill my pride, she said, but you must learn to kill yours before it destroys something you love. That night, they stitched the dress together. Carefully, slowly, the dress held, but it was visibly scarred. And Adaeze never forgot that image as something began to change inside of her. Days passed, and the whispers at school did not stop. The laughter continued endlessly, but Adaeze did not let it bother her. When someone mocked her mother, she stayed silent, but her silence was no longer shame. It was strength. She stopped comparing her life to others. She stopped wishing for another mother. She stopped asking God, why me? Instead, she held her head high until one day, when something unexpected happened. It was visiting day, and the parents arrived as usual. Lace, perfume, pride. Adaeze stood with her friends, calm and unbothered. Then a black car pulled up. The door opened, and the entire school went silent. Chikodi stepped out, dressed beautifully, elegant, modest, radiant, not loud, not flashy, beautiful in a way that commanded respect. Mouths opened, whispers filled the entire atmosphere as the students could not believe how good she looked. Is that your mother? They all whispered as they confessed that she looked stunning. Adaeze felt tears sting her eyes as her mother smiled and walked towards her, wearing the dress that Adaeze had bought for her on her birthday. Adaeze walked to her without hesitation as she hugged her tightly. That day, Adaeze understood something powerful. True beauty is not in what you wear. It is in who you become when pride no longer controls you. And though the old dress remained folded in a box, its lessons lived on forever. The lesson to be learned from this story is that pride destroys quietly, but its damage is loud and lasting. It can tear families apart, blind us to love, and make us lose what truly matters while chasing approval that never lasts. True humility does not mean weakness, it is wisdom, just like the torn dress. Some things can be repaired, but they will never be the same again. Learn early to value people over appearances, character over applause, and humility over pride because the cost of pride is always higher than it seems. I hope you